I'm Dick Lilly. I'm the manager for waste prevention for for Seattle Public Utilities, which is a publicly owned group of utilities operated by the City of Seattle. My specialty really is waste prevention, and I've worked on shopping bag bans and polystyrene and other food service container regulations recently.
Okay. One question that I've been looking at in regards to many states' legislations and cities' legislations regarding banning polystyrene is the fact that not many of them ban actual polystyrene products within grocery stores. Does your Seattle ban do that?
Yes, it does. Let me go. Actually, Mike, let me step back just a minute.
Okay.
And sort of take you through the chronology as to how we got here.
Perfect.
Originally, our council asked us to look at banning polystyrene, single-use polystyrene food containers, and so we did that, and we did it in a rather extensive study. And what we discovered basically was that, well, we could go out and we could ban polystyrene, single-use polystyrene food containers, and the result would be worse because most of the replacements were heavier plastics. And while we would have gotten away from polystyrene's expanded, polystyrene's impact on the marine environment, which is serious, probably because the heavier types of plastic, the hard plastics that would be the substitutes, won't blow around as much. They don't break into quite as small pieces, so they're more likely to make it to landfill than polystyrene. Not a really good outcome. So what we said, well, temporarily, we'll ban polystyrene outright, and we did, in all food service contexts. And then temporarily, for 18 months, we'll allow any substitutes whatsoever. But after 18 months, which was this last July 1st, all single-use food service ware and packaging in the city of Seattle has to be either compostable, and we emphasize compostable, or recyclable. Now, polystyrene was banned January 1st, 2009, but going into that ban, the council made one exception. We had been working heavily and closely with the restaurant and grocery industry, and the grocery industry said, we do not see a adequate substitute product on the market that would allow you to ban polystyrene meat trays and for us to continue to serve our customers at the quality level we expect. And all throughout our work with the industry, we have acknowledged that our regulation should not hamper, constrict, or prevent them from providing their customers with the type of quality service that is part of their business trademark, basically their essence of their business. So the council, certainly with our concurrence, said, well, we will then put off the action on polystyrene meat trays until the July 1st date, when everything has to either be compostable or recyclable. So that's what happened. And during that 18 months period, a couple of different brands of polylactic acid meat trays were developed. These are expanded bioplastic, honest corn-based bioplastic, that have now become the standard meat tray in Seattle. They're tan-colored, and it's also made in white. We don't like that because that looks like the old ones, but those trays now exist and are now used in Seattle. So that's a long answer as with regard to how we've dealt with the grocery industry.
All right. answered that question for me. Do you want to go a little bit into your integration with Cedar Grove Composting and that relationship on how that came about?
Sure. We're really lucky to have a high-quality composter in our market, period. And we wish that, and we hope that all of the other people who tune in and look at your website, look at your site, can have such luck, because they are very high quality. We've worked with them since when, I think we've actually worked with them for 2 decades now, because we started residential yard waste collection, and they were the processor for that. And we worked out a lot of interesting things with them over 2 decades. I mean, when we started out collecting yard waste in about 1990, we allowed people to put it in plastic bags. Well, that had to end, obviously, because the plastic bags ended up scattered throughout the woods near the compost facility. So, you make mistakes along the way. But we worked with them for 20 years, and in 2005, I think it was, we added kitchen vegetative food waste. In other words, the things you throw away when you make a salad, that kind of thing. And those went into the yard waste container. And then we made another change in March of 2009, and that was we required every single-family residence to have organic service. Previously, it had been voluntary, and we were at about 70% of the market. We created some new contracts, some new rates, and we required everybody to have an organics can of one size or another. There's a little cute 17-gallon can for people who don't have much of a yard, and then it goes up to a 96-gallon can for people who have plenty of yard waste along with their food waste. So we now take all kinds of food waste, vegetative, and then bones, meat, fish, everything you name it, we take it. It's picked up once a week. And during all of this, we have seen what works in the compost and what doesn't work, and what we know doesn't work is coated paper. And so in Seattle, you cannot compost coated paper. We don't allow milk cartons, which early, 10 years ago we did, and then we realized, there's polyethylene coating, little tiny polyethylene flakes. We don't allow any coated papers in compost in Seattle.
Okay, that's fantastic. What degree of non-compliance have you had, if any?
Well, it's not so much non-compliance right now. It's a learning curve for everybody. I really believe that nearly every restaurant, including all the chains, are working to meet our standards with regard to single-use packaging. And I also will say I don't think anybody's all the way there yet. We are encouraging restaurants to shift toward compostable, because we believe, and I think that they really realize this, is it's easier for the customer to look at a tray, for example, in a quick-serve restaurant, and realize that nearly everything on that tray, except maybe the little plastic thing he squeezed the ketchup out of, is compostable. And that makes it simpler, and you don't have to read the signs on the way out. What we have done, of course, is we worked with the restaurant and grocery industry on signage. We got a guy here who's just fantastic, outreach guy, Pat Kaufman here, just does a terrific job. We developed a whole series of signs that are available on an FTP site. They're even interactive. You can move some pictures onto the signs and some off, depending on in your restaurant whether a cup is compostable or recyclable. And we worked with, we hold regular stakeholder meetings and so forth. So all of this has worked out into actually fairly consistent signage throughout the city, but people are still learning it. And so we're just out there trying to do the same public education the stores are doing, and that's really where we are right now.
Yeah, your website is it's so easily streamlined to just a basic layman's degree where you can just get on there. You want to get a sign for your restaurant. You can pick out your own sign. It's just fantastic. I have of all the websites that I've gone to regarding composting, it's just so streamlined. Which brings me to my next point.
Yeah.
The main goal of this program seems to be streamlining the actual process from consumption to composting and recycling. Do you see this as a front line or more of a stepping stone towards reducing national consumption?
Well, I think we had a stakeholders meeting last week, and here's what I said in the stakeholders meeting, more or less, is that, well, here we are, people. We're all pioneers, and we really have appreciated the efforts that the manufacturers, distributors, and restaurants, everybody down the chain have made. And what we're really looking at is that none of us in this room would expect single-use, throwaway, landfill packaging to be around in 5 years, would we? And I think that we really agree. That's what we're working on. That we will simply eliminate the landfilling of single-use food serviceware. Now, whether that results in less consumption is another question. I mean, we may push a few restaurants toward what we call durables. Some do. I mean, some actual washable plates have reappeared. Not very many, but some people are doing this.
That's pretty much everything that I really wanted to ask. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, because I kind of did it in a chronological way. I think obviously the elements are that we use to get where we are is right from the get-go. Work with the restaurants, the restaurant association, the landlords. We even wrote legislation and let the landlords do the wording that required the landlords to respond to the needs of restaurants, because we had a lot of places that had to come in and put in compostable materials and compostable food containers on their loading docks, and they'd never had them before. So this is a new thing. And some still say, "Oh God, it's going to smell." Well, we don't. Wait a minute. It's garbage, or it was in your garbage container, and now we're just putting it in a different container. So there was some education there too. So it's really important to work with all of those players, and they really, really have responded very well. And secondly, it's really important to have a good composter. As I say, we do really high-quality compost because there's no plastic film, there's no paper, there's no coated paper in there. And if you to be determined compostable in Seattle, it has to pass dynamic field testing at Cedar Grove. It actually has to go through the pile and come out in 50 or 60 days as nothing. In other words, there's a little tag, and we have to only find that tag at the end and not any of the product. And so it's a very high, it's a high-level test. It's the toughest in the United States, I think.